Welcome to the Claus YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
So may I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Nagamalleshwara, research assistant at Claus. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Strategic Frontlines podcast of Claus. On behalf of DG Claus, it is my pleasure to welcome you all. We are gathered here to reflect, decode, to contextualize the recent visit of Foreign Minister Wang Yi to New Delhi, uh, which we can see a visit may appear routine due to the China hosting SEO summit in Tianjin this end of this month, but it carries some symbolic weight in the current geopolitical environment. So let me begin with an ancient saying, which gives a sense of um, sense what is happening. Uh, Sun Tzu in Art of War says, "In peace, prepare for the war. In war, seek for peace." It perfectly fits the India's dual track diplomacy. On one side, you need to look after the uh, border issue, and the other side, you need to resolve it and go for a dialogue. Let me introduce our eminent panel today's podcast. Today we have our chair of the discussion, Lieutenant General Dushant Singh, and we have our, our speaker, guest speaker, uh, Lieutenant General S.L. Narasimhan, PVSM, AVSM, VSM retired, who has engaged with China both strategically and operationally for decades. He was the first DG for Triple CS, the MEA think tank, and he is a distinguished fellow at Center for Air, Space, Power, and Strategic Studies, and Emirates Resource Faculty at Rashtriya Raksha University. Chairing on our discussion is Lieutenant General Dushant Singh, PVSM, AVSM retired, bringing with him unmatched operational insight into our northern frontiers.
Yeah, we
Joining
can
us,
we
un-
we, we can cut out the introduction and
sure, sir.
move ahead to the because we are all well-known people, so people know us
Yes, sir.
quite well.
That's true, sir.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so let me give me a little background. India and China, two civilizations older than most states, but now locked in a dilemma between border dispute, which refused to melt. Although there are some indications in the Wang Yi visit, and the geopolitical environment that demands dialogue. Both sides met in BRICS summit in Kazan. Both the leadership has hinted that the line of article control protocols and India's um, stand on how the border should be maintained. So, in the October last year, there's an agreement reached on LAC, and now looking forward, India is ready itself to host the BRICS summit, and the next year G20 will be hosted by the US, and um, so now. Uh,
Let's just go into this with BG. BG will start, I think, and start the
yes, ma'am.
discussion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Rao, thank you very much for what introduction to the audience of today's talk. We have John Narsimhan, as you all are aware. He missed out that he was 3 times member of the National Security Advisory Board,
Yes.
which is a major experience which he brings along. He's been the DA in China, so he also has a working experience China. Plus, he actually knows the Chinese language. He was, in fact, he passed out his exam with a distinction. So I think we've got somebody today who is really going to throw some good light on what we are going to actually discuss, which is the India, China, Pakistan, Kabul, US, Russia. There are so many things which are happening. I will not take too much time in introducing the today's geopolitics. Everybody knows it's a tough situation, and as they say in the Indian Army, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. This is the movement that India faces today. So I'll straight away invite General Narsiman to basically throw some light on the Wang Yi visit. Was it a response to the tariff war which is going on, or was it a process which has been started last year in October during the meet which happened in Russia, where there was some kind of a agreement made, and thereafter things have been improving over a period of time, or maybe it was a combination of multiple factors which actually led to the current visit. And we find that after the visit, also there have become some complications with the visit of the Wang Yi going to Kabul and then from Kabul to Pakistan. And in Pakistan, we heard the same old voices, barring some few extra, clarifications which Dr. Tara gave it to me just before the podcast started. I think we will well on that much later. So over to you, sir. Without wasting your time, how do you read the current situation?
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on the panel with General Dushyant and Tara, and of course, Malaysia Rao. I'm going to speak to you about this Wang Yi's visit from the point of view of what has been actually put out. There are a lot of things that get discussed which is not in the public domain, which we will leave it aside for the time being. Whatever has been put out is something that we need to clearly understand. Because even in that, there's a lot of ifs and buts that people bring up with. So when Wang Yi's visit took place, even before his visit started, even before he landed in Delhi, there was a news I'm sure many of us must have read that China is releasing the urea, whatever has been to be released to India, it is being released. So basically, it was building up some kind of positive momentum before he could come into Delhi. There were three issues which were actually bothering us. One is the blocking of the rare earths material to India. That is one. That is not India was not singled out. It was actually a widespread kind of a ban that they had put on. That is one. Second thing was on fertilizers. Fertilizers were being held up, and we are not getting what we are supposed to import from China. And the third was the tunnel boring machines. The tunnel boring machines was a eyesore in our relationship for the last about 1 year. We placed the orders on a German company, and the German company manufactured it in its factory in China. But China held it back and not allowed it to come to us for about 1 year. So because of which, our infrastructure development projects, which were depending on these tunnel boring machines, were held up. So this time around, the official statement did not state this at all. There is no mention of these three in the official statement that have been put out. But there were reports to say that the Chinese have agreed to reconsider their stance and then allow rare earths exports, the tunnel boring machines, and the fertilizers to us. This is the point number one, which is actually not officially reported anywhere, but the reports came out the moment Mr. Wang Yi's visit started. So this is something that we need to keep in mind and keep it aside. The first readout that came out was from China. As always, Chinese are fast on the draw. They came out first with their statement. There are 4 points which are important in their statement. The first point is that they said we should adhere to the dual track process. The dual track process means two connotations. One, they have been saying that keep the boundary issue in its right place, and we should proceed along other relationship like people to people relationship. All these things should be going on as normal. That is one double track. The second implication of the double track is boundary question we need to keep discussing and keep resolving. In the meanwhile, we should also improve the border control. These are the two dual track connotations of saying dual track. So this is something that they said that we should adhere to this. That is point number one. Point number two, they said we should set goals for border control, demarcations, and cross-border exchanges. So this is something that they mentioned. And I'll come and link it to the Indian readout which came out subsequently. Keep this in mind. And the third one, 2005 agreement was mentioned. In fact, for quite some time now, the 2005 agreement that we signed with China, which is titled the political parameters and guiding principles for the resolution of the boundary question. So this found a mention both in the Chinese readout and also in the Indian readout. But there's nothing new in this. A lot of people are saying, no, we have gone back to 2005 the agreement. But all along, we have only been following the 2005 agreement. So there is nothing new except that it has been put in the document in black and white. And the last one, which is actually a surprising one, they mentioned about the one China policy. Now, we used to, somewhere in the olden times, we used to say this. From 2010 onwards, we have stopped mentioning this one China policy. So this time around, they brought it back and said, one China policy should be supported, etc. So this is something which is important because even in the Indian Foreign Office's statement, you find this coming up. I'm going to come to that statement now and see. There are two statements that were put out by the Foreign Ministry, our Foreign Ministry, Indian Foreign Ministry. One was on the meeting between Mr. Wang Yi and Mr. Jaishankar and Dr. Jaishankar, who was our External Affairs Minister. So what it said was that our External Affairs Minister raised three issues with Mr. Wang Yi. One was that terrorism in all forms should be condemned and effective action should be taken against terrorism, for which the statement says that Mr. Wang Yi agreed to this, that we should act on counter-terrorism. The second one, Dr. Jaishankar raised with Mr. Wang Yi, was the dam that is getting constructed on Brahmaputra. And he said that it is going to have effect on the downstream, and therefore, China was requested to be transparent about what they are doing there. What was the Chinese reaction has not been mentioned in that statement. However, what was mentioned was two things. One, we will continue our discussions to renew the memorandum of understanding that we have on river sharing data. For the benefit of the viewers, we have two river data sharing agreements with China. One is on Satluj in the west and one is on Brahmaputra in the east. The memorandum of understanding on Satluj expired in 2020. It has not been renewed. And the one on Brahmaputra expired in 2023. That has also not been renewed. So we are now in talks with the Chinese for renewing these memorandum of understanding. And Chinese agreed, in the other statement it says the Chinese agreed that they will share the river data in emergency situations on humanitarian grounds. That implied that is not going to be a regular feature. As and when there is some emergency coming up, then they will be able to share this. Then they would share it on humanitarian grounds, is what they have said. So that is an indication that on this issue, we need to further negotiate or further talk to the Chinese to come to some kind of an understanding. Okay, this is the 3 points that came up in that statement. The second statement that was put out by the Ministry of External Affairs included Mr. Wang Yi's meetings with Mr. Ajit Doval, who is our National Security Advisor, the purpose for which Mr. Wang Yi had come to India. Mr. Wang Yi had come to India for the 24th Special Representative talks on the boundary question. So that statement also included the 24th Special Representative talks, what happened there. First point that hit anybody's eye, if you read it in detail, the first point that hits anybody's eye is that both the sides seem to have satisfaction on. Just a minute. Am I visible? Yeah.
Visible.
Yeah. Both the sides seems to have conveyed that they are satisfied with the progress on the border control, which means the LAC seems to have remained quiet since the last special representative meeting that took place in December last year in Beijing. So there seems to be some understanding that the line of actual control has remained peaceful in the last about 7-8 months. That is the first point that was mentioned. The second, which actually is a little, we need to understand the background to this. It said we need to invoke the political perspective on the bilateral relations and the boundary question. Now, if you take your mind back, we had an expert group working, we had a joint working group working before 2003 when Mr. Vajpayee took that visit to Beijing. And they had realized by that time that both these groups are not making sufficient progress. There was some progress, but they were not making sufficient progress. And so, therefore, both Mr. Vajpayee on this side and Mr. Vanchiappa, who was the premier on the other side, decided to start this special representative mechanism. Basically, with the idea that there needs to be a political backing and a political push towards this dialogue. So that was actually the premise on which the SR talks were already started. They have mentioned it again here, which is something which we need to take note of. That means that even the SR talks have not been progressing the way they were expecting it to do. And therefore, there needs to be a political push to make this talk also go forward. To just bring the audience to speed on this particular issue, when we established the special representative mechanism, we were supposed to go through a 3-step process. The first step was to understand and come to an agreement on the principles. That is how we signed the 2005 agreement on political parameters and guiding principles for resolution of the boundary question. That was the first step. The second step was to come to an understanding on the boundary itself. And third step was to demarcate that boundary. Please mark this word, because demarcation is going to come back again. So this is something that on the premise that the special representative talks have started, we have done 23 rounds of talks, but the progress on the boundary question has not been very much. So therefore, there was a need to give the political push again to go towards certain amount of resolution of this boundary question. The third one is establishment of 3 new mechanisms. 2 mechanisms under the Ministry of External Affairs. Ministry of External Affairs has got a mechanism with the Chinese, which is known as Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination. Under that, there are 2 groups that are supposed to be established. Is somebody doing a puja somewhere? Anyway, it doesn't matter. There are 2 groups that are supposed to be established. One group is known as the expert group. That is supposed to work towards early harvest delimitation of the boundary. Okay? Please mark this word. Early harvest delimitation of the boundary. We are talking of delimitation. Chinese are talking of demarcation. That is why I said I'll come back to this word subsequently. So we need to understand what is delimitation, what is delineation, and what is demarcation. Now, this delimitation is basically to come to a certain understanding on the border as to where the alignment roughly lies. Delineation is going more into detail and come to a clear drawing of or line, etc., the strip maps, etc., for the boundary. Demarcation, after this process is done, you physically go on ground, both the sides, go on ground and put the boundary pillars marking the boundary. That is demarcation. The reason why I'm explaining this is we are talking of delimitation. Chinese statement talks of demarcation. So this is a gap that we need to bridge in further talks. That is the point I wanted to mention. These are the 2 groups. One is the expert group, which is supposed to do this delimitation part of the early harvest. When you say early harvest, what can be one way of, these are all guess. I don't know what happened, transpired there, but this is my assessment of what came out on this thing. When you say early harvest, one is there have been certain issues in certain areas which are actually both the sides have agreed to be disputed all along the line of actual control. One is you will be able to resolve that. That is one. There are disputed areas, there are sensitive areas, number of classifications are there. We will not go into that. But that is one which can be easily resolved. That is one. Second, in Sikkim, Chinese actually created 2 or 3 problems in Sikkim which could be resolved. The third is the middle sector. And this entire line of actual control with China is divided into 3 sectors. One is the western sector, one is the middle sector, and the other one is the eastern sector. The middle sector is the least controversial of them all. Basically, because we have already exchanged maps with the Chinese showing our perception of the line of actual control, and we have got a map from them showing their perception of the line of actual control. So we really know exactly as to where each one's position lies. So that is another place where we can resolve easily. So these could be the possibilities for early harvest and demarcation, the delimitation. The third group, the second group, which is called the working group. That working group is supposed to be working on border control, which means the line of actual control, whatever standard operating procedures we have established to control any face-off that is taking place, what drills we need to follow, those things have already been established. If those could be gone into and tightened up so that incidents of the nature of Galwan doesn't happen, this group would do that. So this is the second group that was being established. The third one, we have a senior military commanders level talks happening in eastern Ladakh after Galwan happened. Now there has been understanding which has been agreed that in the middle sector and also in the eastern sector, we will have the senior military level commanders talks. So those have to be, that mechanism has to be established. So that is the second important point. The third important point was when Galwan happened, we had suggested a 3-step process to resolve it. One was disengagement, that actually just pulling back the troops a little bit so that they're not facing eye to eye. That happened with the agreement that finished in 22nd October 2024. The second process was de-escalation, which means the troops pull back further into the depth areas. And third step was de-induction, where all the troops that have come go back to the peacetime locations which were existing before Galwan happened. So this is a 3-step process, out of which 1 step was completed. The second step of de-escalation has been mentioned in that statement that we will work towards de-escalation and we need to give push to that. The fourth one, which is interesting, is both sides agreed that we should uphold the multilateralism and the multilateral trading system. Now, this is something which is actually some of the Western countries are trying to pull back. Particularly the US is wanting to pull back from this trading system because they have not even appointed the judges for the appellate court in WTO to resolve the disputes. So when in a situation like that, when some countries are feeling that the globalization has not helped them, and so they need to come back to their own countries to start manufacturing or go to a nearby friendly place to do that, etc. In that scenario, we are talking about multilateralism and multilateral trading system under WTO, and WTO needs to be strengthened is what has been mentioned. And the fifth point is mutual support for BRICS. See, next year BRICS is going to be done headed by China, and thereafter we are going to be heading it. And for both summit meetings, they said that we'll support each other. So that is something which is mutual support, and that is fine. The sixth one, Chinese for a long time, post Galwan, they have been asking for 3 things. One, establishment of direct flights from India to China. Second, the journalists should be allowed to come and work in each other's places. And third is the visas for people to come and go. Now, if you take your mind back, China allowed our Mansarovar Yatra to take place this year. So people have gone to Mansarovar and come back. As a reciprocal arrangement, we have also started issuing visas to tourists from China. So this process already started. They have said that they'll expand it, which is fine, which will improve the people-to-people contact. Direct flights, they have agreed that they will start it. And this discussion started from 22nd October 24 onwards, when we signed that agreement. but still some processes are there, and they're also trying to sign an agreement on the air traffic agreement that they're trying to sign. So this is the third part, the second thing. Journalists, China actually did not renew the visa for one of our journalists, and then the reciprocal action was taken. So now that process probably they'll have to relook and allow journalists from each other country to come and work in each other's place. But what we need to keep in mind is that our embassy in China plus the journalists, Indian journalists operating in China, do not get the kind of access that any other foreign journalist gets here in India. There is a mismatch there. That needs working. So that is the third part that we need to do. And the next point was, this year is the 75 years of establishment of diplomatic relationship between India and China. If you take your mind back, when Mamallapuram informal summit took place, that time we had decided the 2020 was the year of 70th year of establishing diplomatic relationship, and we had decided we will do 70 events in each other's place. But unfortunately, COVID came, then Galwan happened, so 70th year went just like that. We didn't do anything much. So this time around, for celebrating the 75th year of establishing diplomatic relationship, each other would support each other's activities. So that is the way it has been mentioned. Lastly, there is also an mention that the Mansaro Yatra will be expanded in numbers, which means that will happen from 2026 onward. The year is also mentioned 2026. So these are the points that came up. So going back to what General Dushyant started with, why did all this happen all of a sudden? That is the question which is in everybody's mind. But this is not a thing that has happened suddenly. That is the point that we need to understand. The moment Galwan happened, we started negotiating a number of things. We did the first set of disengagement in 2022. And the Chinese have always been saying, let us keep this boundary issue in its proper place. Let us treat the boundary issue properly and then improve the relationship on the other end is what they have been saying. So this process has been going on for some time, and it gained some momentum after Mr. Modi met Mr. Xi Jinping in Kazan last year. And thereafter, things started improving slowly. And also, if Mr. Modi was to go to China, that is on 31st of this month, then some progress needs to be shown anyway. So obviously, some adjustments would have taken place along that. And the last, and we can't rule out this, both India and China are under pressure from US for tariffs. Okay? Though, right from the day Mr. Trump assumed power for the second time, he has not been actually going after China. He has been going after every other country. But he is trying to make some kind of a agreement with the Chinese. Therefore, he has extended the period after which he will impose the tariffs to another 90 days. Initially, when he came, he started increasing. It came to 145%, which is phenomenal. And Chinese came up to 125%, and then they all pulled back. Now, China is suffering about 30% tariffs. We are now suffering 50% tariffs from 27th onwards. So this is something that has happened. Both the countries are under pressure, and so they need each other's help to stabilize this. That could be another reason. So these are the reasons that could be basically because why this kind of a development has happened. But I'm also aware that the way we have been dealing with the boundary question, if we go along that line, it will be very difficult to progress. You need to think fresh. And I think this delimitation is a fresh thinking that is coming into this case. So this is what I wanted to mention. I will stop here and open it for any questions that we have.
Yeah. So thank you, sir. I think you've given a very good view of what actually has transpired or would have transpired, because certain things are based on your assessment and certain things which are there in the open media. I would like Dr. Tara to comment upon the subsequent development which took place beyond Wang Yi's visit to India, and that was basically a first he was supposed to go only to Pakistan, but he changed the plan and went to Kabul. And in Kabul, he had a trilateral, and from there he came back to Pakistan. Interesting part is that the statements which came out of Pakistan were on similar lines even prior to the tariff, etc. So I have two, three, questions which you could tackle since you have been looking at Pakistan quite closely. Is there some kind of a nexus here between, and this is a out of the blue question, huh? So is there some kind of a nexus between the Pakistanis, Chinese, and the US in this part of the world? Because suddenly there seems to be no objections, although there are some experts like Saran are all saying that the Chinese are quite upset with the Pakistanis for having gone toward the Americans. But I don't see that happening on the ground. On the ground, the Americans are also supporting Pakistanis. The Chinese continue to support. The statement which Wang Yi made was that in priority, Pakistan will always remain as number one as far as their priority of friendship is concerned. And Ishaq Dar said, it is restatement of ironclad relationship between China and Pakistan. So how do you read this? Uh, should India be cautious as of now and not get overboard in terms of the new opportunities which are coming to us? So a quick comment by you would be of great help to us.
No, I think if you recall, there was an earlier informal trilateral, just before this present trilateral took place, where the
Mhm.
Chinese called and sent them back to China and said that, okay, I mean, in essence, the message to Afghanistan was that you make up with Pakistan and you have to send ambassadors and you have to have normal ties. So that message was clearly given to the Afghans there. The trouble is, after this, of course, comes this trilateral, where I looked at the Chinese readout, and it's it makes, I mean, as far as we're concerned, there are 2 points in this. One is one thing which they're reiterating: Afghanistan is part of Belt and Road Initiative, which they said earlier also. They've also said that the CPEC, it should also be part of CPEC. Now, this is something the Taliban did not like earlier. They don't want this whole, CPEC thing to come into the equation. They want a separate relationship with China. They're happy with that. They don't want it going through Pakistan. Then there was this whole thing that we will invest in your minerals. You're talking of the U.S. Geological Survey talked about a trillion worth of minerals, including lithium. So it will be interesting to see if the battle for lithium and related minerals comes into Afghanistan, in which case Taliban is completely unprepared for it. And finally, what they said, the Chinese statement is very interesting. It talks of cooperating on terrorism so that there is a peaceful region. It's not just talking of Afghanistan and Pakistan. It's talking of the region as a whole. And you also need to look at root causes. And number two, we don't want there should be no foreign interference in Afghanistan. Now, normally we would say, okay, that is maybe this the Pakistanis pointing fingers at us because that's what they keep saying that we are interfering. But there is also the view that there is a US hand in supporting the Islamic State in Afghanistan. So that is which, by the way, a Pakistani official has been quoted as saying that the Islamic State is targeting Chinese and Russian interests, and it is funded by the US. So there is this, sort of roiling interest. And finally, if I just want to bring out this one statement from the what do you call the from Xinhua, which says, I'll just read a very very interesting statement. It says, Wang said that the relationships between China and Pakistan, China and India, as well as China and other neighboring countries, are not directed against any third party and are not subject to any third party influence. I found that a very interesting thing. Just after you have a trilateral with Pakistan, this is what the statement was. So there are layers here which are not clearly, it's not yet clear. but also the fact that we know that we have mineral interests in Afghanistan. China has its own line. Nothing has come of it so far. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But there is also one in the statement, they're talking of a railway network being revived through Pakistan. That they've been pushing for some time. All that, of course, Pakistan also said, wonderful things about Afghanistan. And Afghanistan didn't say all that wonderful things about Pakistan. But the reality on the ground is, while all this talk is going on, the Afghan traders are stuck on the border, unable to get their products through Torkam and other things. So this is the reality. And Mutaki still has to visit Pakistan. And I understand that the Pakistan foreign minister didn't exactly get a great welcome in Afghanistan. So it's still in flux. China would like all of these countries to sort of come together and sort of work against terrorism, because it is not happy with the EPI. It is not happy with any kind of religious extremism, but it wants a foothold in. So I'll stop there because it's not yet apparent. There is even the Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson. Their statement is also very, very even-handed. So whether that, General Narasimhan will be able to sort of comment on that better, whether that is their general practice. Because while all that Iron Brother and all that stuff is there, they're saying we want peace in the whole of South Asia, and everybody's got to get together. I'm not putting it very simply, but it's like a parent telling all the children, shut up and keep quiet. So let's see how that works out.
I'll just say 3 points on this. Well, short 30 seconds. Okay, if you permit me.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
One is, what the priority one is Pakistan, China. That is a given. In all our track 1.5, track 2 meetings we have with the Chinese, despite all the points that we raise with them regarding Pakistan, etc., they say we understand all this, but we will support Pakistan. That has been the constant kind of a statement that we get from the Chinese, and so there is no surprises there. The second thing, why is China interested in Afghanistan and CPC to Afghanistan? Please take your mind back. 2 decades ago, they bought a mine called Mesa Inak copper mines. Okay, and they also got exploratory rights for oil. But the problem is they have not exploited it so far. There's no connectivity. Unless you can mine anything. But the problem is if you're not able to take it back to wherever you want to do it, there's no point in doing it. And so the situation in Afghanistan didn't allow that to happen till the time Taliban came to power the second time. And therefore, they have been insisting on CPEC to go to Kabul and that area. The third thing is on the regional terrorism that you talked about. The region, I don't think they're talking about Asia as a region. What they are talking about is China, Afghanistan, Pakistan. That region is what they're talking about, basically because they are expecting ETIM to operate from either Afghanistan or from Pakistan. They want to avoid that. So I think region, you need to see that. And why another point regarding the CPEC is they also want to have an alternate route to the Arabian Sea. If they can go to Afghanistan through Iran, they'll be able to get into the Arabian Sea. So that is another thing that they are working on. So these are the issues that I think that we need to keep in mind.
Yeah. Can I just say one point here?
Yeah, go ahead.
This Mesa mine, that original contract had a railway line which was supposed to go towards the Afghan border, towards that the Central Asian side. That was never made. So the fact is, that couldn't happen for various reasons. And even at one point of time, I think the Taliban told them, listen, either you work the mine or you go from here. So they were pretty upset. But the fact is this railway line they keep talking of, which is coming from China through the upper, towards the tribal areas and then to Afghanistan. That is my concern. So I just thought I just put that there on the table.
That is the western axis of CPEC, which is already planned actually.
Yeah, that is already there. The the question which I have now, and which continues to bother me, is that look, most of it what we have talked about is more or less the same as what it was pre 2020, except for the new arrangements for the boundary issue, which Jan Narasimhan spoke about, creation of those three groups, and then delimitation, delineation, and demarcation. There are some differences. What I wish to know from Jan Narasimhan and also Dr. Tara and Roku, you can also throw in some experience of yours of 7 years being in China. Hopefully, you should be able to add something to it. Is that, do you see any fundamental change in the way Chinese are operating as far as India is concerned? That's point number one. Point number two, do you think Chinese are taking advantage of the challenge which India is facing because of the tariff and trying to push their agenda? And if that be so, why should India also do a counter and try to push our agenda as far as the boundary is concerned, while accepting all these trade related concessions which are being given to us? Are we really desperate for that, or because we can't find alternate markets or diversify our exports, which are going to be excess because of the US tariffs which are going to be raised? Because the tariffs are also very selective as far as the US is concerned. You see, they have excused pharma, they have excused electronics, they have applied tariffs on gems and jewelry. They have applied, I mean, on those items which really do not have that much major. Even the defense equipment, they are currently silent. I don't think they have really mentioned anything directly as far as tariffs are concerned, even on the defense imports, etc. It's India which is now actually doing the counter, which is saying that they're dropping our purchases of, let's say, the strikers and the javelin. In any case, we didn't want to purchase them, F-35s. So we have also started off with the items which we really don't want to take. So do you think that this is an opportunity for India also, why China is trying to take advantage? Shouldn't India also start taking advantage as far as the boundary question is concerned? But that's the primary reason why we are not able to move ahead with China. The trust factor, even the chat box is full of the Chinese cannot be trusted. So, quick comment from John Narasimhan and then
Yeah,
Dr. Tara.
I'll just say 30 seconds. One, I think, you know what, the Chinese seems to be believing that the boundary question should not come in the way of the bilateral relationship.
Yeah,
they have been saying it.
Yeah.
They have been saying it for many years. So I don't see a reason as to why that should be played up here at this point in time. I don't believe that is the connection. I think what is happening is that if China wants to become a leader, first in Asia and then in the world, and if they can't manage Asia itself, then that will probably impinge on their ultimate goal of becoming a very leading power in the world. So this is something that I think we need to keep in mind when we keep working on this. The thing that we are actually looking at is there are no dependencies of China on us, but we are dependent on China for many number of things. Therefore, you are at a disadvantage actually when you negotiate on these issues. That is number one. There are a lot of things that are happening in India to bridge that gap, but it will take some time. So let us face this. So that is one. The second thing is we are not actually giving into what China wants. That is another point I wanted to mention. We have been sticking our neck out for the last 4 years. When Chinese have been pushing for us to improve the relationship, we said, sorry, unless this thing particularly happens, we are not going to do this. And we have maintained it. So I think we have stood our ground and will continue to stand our ground. There are certain vulnerabilities with us, critical dependencies on China that we need to overcome. The companies are already adjusting to the tariffs. Let me also tell you this. What they have worked out is part of it will be absorbed by the Indian companies, part of it will be absorbed by the American companies, part of it will be actually given to the customer. So this is the model that they are already working out. So I think this shall pass. I mean, tariff is one issue that we need to wait and watch and then do our remedial measures. I don't think we are given in anywhere, or we are intending to give anything anywhere. That is the point I wanted to make.
Okay, Dr. Tara, do you suggest any opportunities which are going to come across our way, because it's always said that challenges always challenges always give us opportunity. So do you think we should now look in a focused manner on creating our own capabilities like Atmanirbharta, etc., so that we are not so dependent, like General Narasimhan said, we don't have any leverage whatsoever. But I feel that the consumer market which India provides, that's a good big leverage. We have a very very large middle class which can be a market for many countries, and that is one of the reasons why India has always been targeted. It's a different matter that the US has suddenly decided to do something. Maybe it's trying to make an example out of India and then try to subdue the others. So you see any opportunities for India in this ongoing challenges which are being faced by us?
I think there is one fantastic opportunity which we should have taken long back. Is that your large industrial houses seriously need to increase their R&D? I mean, our R&D vis-a-vis the global average is pathetic. That is one. Number two is, as you increase your own Atmanirbhar means you also have to put money into that. And most importantly, I think we need to take the neighborhood along. If you're going to, why can't you outsource some parts of your industrial production to neighbors so they have a stake in your growth? They grow and you grow together. I mean, that I'm saying that very broadly. Number three is, I just, if I can sort of throw a question to General Darsiman, the Chinese ambassador made a comment that, we will stand with India against bullying. I was wondering if that is even worth worth thinking, looking
Discussion.
at. Yeah.
No, the thing is, not only him. In fact, Chinese also said, that the attack on the sovereignty of India cannot be compromised is what they made a mention earlier. I mean, that is the line that they are trying to project. But we need to stand our ground and be on guard.
Yeah,
So,
young mind Doku, you have been out of communication, out of conversation. Let us hear from you. Just think wild. What can we do? You have the 7 years of Chinese experience behind you. So go ahead, all yours.
So, to the point that you asked, is there any change in the approach? I feel like there is no change in the approach, but it is the issues that are in the discussion or the important one. So, why I would say this is, I would like to make a mention that the Tibet, while the Wang Yi, Foreign Minister Wang Yi is in Delhi, Xi Jinping is in Tibet. For the 60th anniversary of China's control of Tibet. And for the second question, are we not fully utilizing the advantage of the tariffs, or is it China trying to take the advantage of the tariffs on us? I feel like India India's dependency on China is much less than what China depends on us, because they desperately need the markets for their capacity of manufacturing is huge. And what I have seen in there is like, there are a lot of jobs not being jobs being laid off, and many youth are searching for the jobs that I have seen for all these years. Is it it's before COVID and after COVID, mostly because their reliance on the automation is also one of the issue. And the third one is the education itself. um, China is not creating as much as it has to create on the high skill work opportunities. I think that is one area that China is in the consumption one. Why the Chinese consumption, if you look at it, US and India, much the domestic consumption is more than Chinese. Actually, it was supposed to be other way around if the numbers that they are saying it in outside are true. So that's what.
Okay, I think what we will do is we will close the discussion here as far as our internal discussion goes. We will essentially take few questions from the chat box. There are a number of people eagerly trying to punch in their questions, so we will take them one by one. My first question and what I will do is uh, I'll uh, I'll tell the question, and whosoever wants to respond can respond rather than going in a circle. What leverage does India has? US, Russia, China market will anyways be captured by efficient production,
Basically, he's talking about
economy.
the market efficiency and
Yeah.
the leverage that you have. You see, the point
Yes.
that we need to understand is we keep saying we've got a large market. Okay. We're a large market where everybody would like to come in. But you
Yeah.
please look at the purchasing power that we have at this point in time. We have a middle class which is growing. Though we have large in numbers, the market is not so large. So we need to keep this in mind when we keep saying that we have a large market. We are a growing market. Our consumption is growing. All that is given. But at this point in time, if you look at the market value, market volume is not very high. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. The point about efficient production is something which is very important for us. Tara talked about the R&D. We also have to invest in efficient manufacturing and modernizing our manufacturing to bring the cost of production less. Otherwise, you're in no way going to compete with anybody. So that is the problem we are facing now at this point in time. R&D is a major issue. Efficiency in manufacturing and start manufacturing within the country is the second issue. These two we need to look into it much more seriously.
Next question is from Tanner House. I don't know. I noticed that the Chinese set up a program at Boston University for a transfer to the third most prestigious college in China after 2 years at Boston University. Is that something new? I don't know. I'm not aware of this particular initiative. So, if any one of you is aware, Doku, I think you should be able to throw some light on this. Although it is not related to our
Yeah.
talk, but if you know something about it, you can
So
let me
I
know.
may add
Otherwise,
it a little bit. Usually, Chinese have set up the exchange centers in their universities, like with Tsinghua and Harvard, with
okay.
other universities. But only private university with more, they would allow them to be a think tanks in Shanghai, but not in a campus. I think this could be seen as a new one.
Okay. Okay. So this is a question which really doesn't need answer, but if anyone wants to say about it, can go ahead and say. It's about trust,
No,
which I just
I
spoke.
mean, I have been saying this, the trust part of it. I've been saying this right from Galwan onwards when I've been going on to the media and then speaking. You see, you can't wish away your neighbors. He's going to be there with you, whether you want it or not. He's not going to move away, or nor are you are able to move away. So you have to live with the neighborhood. That is number one. Number two, I've always been saying, trust but verify. This has been told by one of the US presidents earlier. But trust you must have. Whatever he's saying or whatever you agree, you trust. But then you also need to have a verifying mechanism going with it. That is the way I think we need to work. And on that, I have no doubts.
I don't think you can trust anybody. I mean, it's not a question of just trusting
Absolutely.
China.
Absolutely.
You know, you can't
Absolutely.
trust the US. And I wouldn't 100% trust the Russians either. So it's everybody works on national interest. So I don't think you can make this decision here. That is pretty much up to us. On this Chinese ingress into the US, I have seen for myself the number of Chinese who are studying in US universities who are part of a social group and who are influencers. There was till recently a huge amount of Chinese influence in these universities, plus also the money that they bring in to these. So that's quite amazing. It's
But
quite
that has gone
staggering.
into a tailspin at this point in
Yes,
time.
it has.
In
Yeah,
fact,
now it
Chinese
is.
have been actually complaining to the US today that you are ill-treating our students, you are putting them in dark rooms, this thing, that thing, etc. And I think there's a proper scrutiny of all the Chinese students going to China, going to US, and many of the reasons why all countries institutes have been closed down one after the other. So there are a lot of things which have been taken against the Chinese and the Chinese students in US, not only there in UK also.
Yeah. So what I find here in the question box is that everyone is talking about, somebody's saying we are, I mean, it took us X Y number of years, etc., to understand that the Americans backstabbed us, the Chinese have
No, no.
backstabbed us. No, I'm just saying these are the kind of sentiments which are going around in the country, which we need to actually recognize if we have to be conscious of what our public is thinking. Every question, let me tell you, every question here, except for Shilpa Murdeshwar, who says wise decision by Indian government to talk to China. Okay, so my issue was that in priority of our talks in the future, I think trust must remain always behind our mind. When we are dealing with whether the Chinese or the American, both are equally, and it's always a famous. I mean, we all know about the famous saying of the Americans that to be enemy of US is dangerous, but to be a friend of US
Friend of
is fit.
fatal.
Yeah, yeah, it is fatal.
That is
So
Kissinger. Kissinger said that.
I think, yeah. So Kissinger said that. So what my sense is that today, at least today, I think what will help us is that we continue to go along with our national interest. I think other than that, let's not get too much involved with the optics. Till now, my this is my view that we were getting carried away by optics, hug
Yes.
and whatnot, and
Yes.
suddenly we thought everything is going very nice. I think those were meant more for the public. In the real terms, let's do things in a more professional and a business like manner, and be prepared for any jolts. That is the way. And a quick one line comment from Jan Narsiman and Dr. Tara, and we'll close the discussion.
Yeah.
Sir,
Just one thing I just want. Oh, so my audio is not there. Can you
nice
hear me?
there, sir.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Only one line I would like to say, that I think we have taken a cautious first step. We should understand this is the first step. So the moment a group is established, don't expect the boundary to be, delimited tomorrow. It is not going to happen.
Yeah,
It is going to take time.
absolutely.
We need to have patience. If we lose patience, we'll lose more. So we need to be patient. That is the message I want to give.
Yeah, I think we have to. I mean, things are moving so fast. And to be honest, I haven't seen the foreign relations changing like a kaleidoscope. Every day it changes. So we really, really have to move fast. And like you said, everything should be assessed on solid our own self-interest. I mean, it's nice to say, XYZ is been a friend of India for years, but in the end, it's what you can get out of it. And that's particularly true to our West. We can expect almost anything to happen.
Okay, so we will close with a positive comment by one of our Western uh, audience who says, Namaste, Karthaji, Jan Singh, Jan Narsiman, Mr. Rao. Thank you for the presentation. We never see these views in the West due to both their ignorance and agenda based thereof. So I think he has summed up the approach for us in the future. And thank you all, sir, and Jai Hind before we
Jai Hind.
close.
Thank you. Thank you.
So due to the paucity of the time,